Out of these days, isn't it, with the match ratio coming into play? West Coast and Adelaide, the top two teams, with North Melbourne and St Kilda having played less games, all with 100% ratio. You notice that Melbourne has the same number of points as St Kilda, but a better percentage, but they're actually in 5th placing with the Saints in 4th because of the match. Taken off in the first quarter against Melbourne with concussion. Now, Richard Osborne, this looked to be nasty at the time. He limped off the ground. He was aided off the ground just before half-time. But the good news for Fitzroy was he did come back. He didn't look 100% fit, but it wasn't a reoccurrence of that knee injury, which was good. This was some play right at the beginning of the final quarter, and it was really symbolic of what happened yesterday at Princes Park, with Fitzroy players at times not getting their hand on the footy quarter at the game.
He's going to stay in hospital for a few days. The doctors said today, apparently, that it was conducive to a road accident. That's how hard he was hit. Very, very severe concussion. They did the brain scans and all on him, but no damage, so he'll just lie in hospital for a couple of days and hopefully come out well. Well, that's good news, because the people that saw him carried off feared for the worst yesterday. Neck brace and all on. It looked very dicey. What about John? Very, very badly at Princes Park. It was a woeful display. Melbourne winning by 131 points. Ian Robertson was there, so was Kelvin Moore and also Ron Barassi. Robbo, it's been a long time since we've seen this team go so badly as Fitzroy. At the same time, Melbourne did play well.
Yes, Bruce, it was a very disappointing performance by the Lions, and I think that they've got a lot of work to do. Whether they've got changes that they can make that'll improve their side, well, it remains to be seen. I thought that it was probably Melbourne's big men that made the difference, and normally you give the votes to the bigger guy, but on this occasion I thought Greg Healy, just for his persistence all day. He started off magnificently with something like 12 possessions in the first quarter, and he fed off the 2-vote receiver, Jay Stynes, who I thought was a great leader all round the ground, took a lot of marks and kicked a couple of goals and teamed very well with his counterpart, Steve O'Dwyer. And Brett Lovett, well, it was a bit of a toss-up. There were 2 or 3 that could have got that 1 vote, Brett Lovett, Glenn Lovett or Darren Bennett. I went for Brett Lovett because he was a really stingy defender. Fitzroy kicked 2 goals in the last quarter to finish up with 6, and that Melbourne defence worked very, very well, very cohesively. Spalding was a good player, and Rod Owen, I was quite impressed with Rod Owen's performance. I thought it was a good team performance by Owen, and Melbourne is certainly looking for him to improve their forward line.
Do you think Fitzroy erred in having such an inexperienced ruck up against the big Melbourne pair? I mean, they're 2 veterans, Ironmonger and Rendell, were in the reserves, weren't they?
Perhaps they are veterans, Ron. That might be the operative word.
No, well, it certainly was, Bob, and they took a bit of a punt and it didn't come off. Ironmonger, I think, probably would have been a better bet. But
I watched them play at Geelong, and they didn't deserve a place in the team.
Well, I guess, you know, right from the start, that's the way you pick the side. But Matt Rendell apparently has got a crook back, Ron.
Yeah, well, I didn't say they should be picked, but gee, what a feeling for the coach. His first outing as a senior coach and as a walloping like that must have taken very hard. I would imagine to be a bitter pill.
Like you, Ian, I was very impressed with the defence of the Melbourne side. I mean, on paper they look like they're up against fair opposition with Osborne and Roos down in that forward line, but I thought that Campbell has certainly kicked on from last year. He's bulked up a little bit, but he certainly shows a bit of dash and can get off the ground, and I was particularly impressed with Sean White, who's come back very well after that serious knee operation. I think he was a bonus, and as you rightly said, the Lovett boys and Stephen Clark was another one. They used the ball magnificently coming out of that half-back line and set up play upfield.
Does it mean that the West Coast Eagles will beat Fitzroy by 250 points? Does it look like that?
No, Bob, it never works that way.
No, but does it look like that?
Well, if the game was over there, I mean, Fitzroy would go over there with their tail between their legs, surely, wouldn't they?
Yes, but they can play with more spirit than they did yesterday. I mean, they've got to be fired up.
That's a great word. I thought that their attitude right from the start left a lot to be desired. Guys like Ross Lyon, who was a very talented player, Paul Roos, there are a couple of others that have got a bit of experience that, to me, just didn't look as though they were as keen as they should have been.
And of course their captain, Osborne, is that full forward where you have the least influence on the game, particularly when it's not coming down there very often.
Just quickly, I'd like to give Stevenson a bit of a rap, the young fellow who played for Fitzroy in defence. I thought he played very well. And guys like Bunn, Blakey, Jim Wind and O'Connell, the ex-Eagle player. Who
Brett Stevens did well on line.
Gary Lyon, yep.
Although well beaten in the ruck, I thought, as you mentioned, O'Connell could be a handy player, and I think there's a future for young Davis also. I mean, he looks like he's a little bit undersized to take on the likes of Stynes and O'Dwyer, but certainly could be able to fit in the key position somewhere at some stage during this. So they may have picked up something out of the wreckage yesterday, and I thought Lynch was a good try for them and held Bennett pretty well in the first half.
Could I speak to our professional man on the panel? Jared, what is the influence of putting a pain-killing thing in a fella's ankle and sending him back onto the ground? Does he not run the risk of...
Who are you talking about, Bob?
Osborne.
Thank you.
Well, I guess by killing the pain, you're getting rid of the body's protective mechanism,
Yes.
and there is a chance that you can do further damage. But the medical personnel now are pretty aware of this problem, Bob, and I would very much doubt that they'd send a player of any calibre out on the ground if they thought there was a real chance of further damage.